Welcome to Halacha in a Year, where we can get to learn all the most relevant halacha through the prism of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. You are listening to Rabbi Ya'akov Trump. This year is kindly sponsored by the Moshe Group and CA in zechus of Rivka Biela bas נחמה Shifra and in honor of Rabbi Trump. Today we're going to be learning the halachas of Kiddush and the Shabbos meals. This is the second part of Siman Ayin Zayin, the 77th chapter in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. In the first part we examined the night Kiddush on Shabbos, the types of wine used for Kiddush, and the laws around night Kiddush. Today we're going to look at three more concepts. They are the daytime Kiddush, meals of Shabbos, and oneg Shabbos, enjoyment of Shabbos as a whole. Let's jump straight in. Our first concept is the daytime Kiddush. We're going to look at this through the prism of a few questions, 12 questions to understand the daytime Kiddush. So, what is the daytime Kiddush? So technically speaking, it is only one bracha, the bracha of Borei Peri HaGefen, which is on the wine. And we also add some psukim beforehand. Typically, we add the psukim in Parshas Kisisa, V'shamru b'nei Yisrael es Shabbos, and we add the text from the Aseres HaDibros of Zachar es Yom HaShabbos LaKadoshai as a preamble. But notice they are not actually part of the bracha, they are setting the tone for this Kiddush, which is now going to also set the tone for the meal that we have afterwards. What should the Kiddush be on? So obviously the best case scenario is to have it on wine. If one has a minhag in the family, so let's say one has Hasidic roots, and the family has a tradition to do it on schnapps, on whiskey, then one may do that as long as, and the Kitzur is clear that it should be that the whiskey has to be a revius. It can't be a schnapps cup. It needs to be at least 86 milliliters in order for this to be affected or effectuate as Kiddush. There are those who are more makil and say, well, the way that whiskey is drunk is in schnapps glasses and therefore can be made as such. But this is certainly, if one is already going in that direction, one should do it in the more correct way as well. And if one is not of such a tradition, then one should avoid that. The best way to do Kiddush is on wine. Now, can one eat or drink before Kiddush? So, like Kiddush at night, one cannot eat or drink before making Kiddush. When does the chiyuv of Kiddush actually kick in? Meaning to say, what point in time would that obligation kick in and therefore prohibit me from eating and drinking? Is it from the moment I wake up? And the answer is no. Only after one davens shachris does the expectation of Kiddush kick in. At that point in time, one may not eat or drink. Obviously, before davening, because there's no chiyuv of Kiddush at that point in time yet, it's not after shachris, therefore one may drink before davening, one may have a cup of water, one may have a cup of tea or coffee before davening. Obviously, one cannot eat before davening, but one would be able to eat and drink up till before shachris. When one davens shachris, then the chiyuv of Kiddush clicks in. At that point in time, one may not have anything until the point one has Kiddush itself. What are the woman's requirements for Kiddush and her eating on Shabbos mornings? So, as we know, a woman is equally obligated in Kiddush as a man is because of the connection between Zachar and Shamar as well. There are different requirements when it comes to a woman who, in regards to her davening, her chiyuv of davening. Technically speaking, as we discussed beforehand, the best case scenario is for a woman to daven 2 tefillos a day, which is shachris and mincha. However, some have the practice to daven once a day as their chiyuv, as their obligation. There are times in life where a woman is not able to daven, and that is, let's say she's in that space and time when she is child raising, and it's almost impossible at that point in time for the demands to daven at that point in time, whether she may perhaps absolves herself of that responsibility through a few bakashos, the Birkas HaTorah in the morning and the Kriyas Shema, or just isn't able to do anything at all during that period of time. So then it would depend on this particular halacha. So a woman who does regularly daven on a regular morning, then before she davens, she would be like a man and would be able to drink before she davens. Once she davens, the chiyuv of Kiddush kicks in and she wouldn't be able to even drink before she makes Kiddush. If a woman, let's say, is in the child raising stage and she's not able to daven whatsoever, in that case, there happens to be a little bit of a debate. So Rosh Hashanah Zalman Auerbach and the Shir Shabbos Kehilchos suggest that a woman in such a case, a woman who's not davening, needs to say Kiddush before she eats anything in the morning, because then it's triggered the moment she wakes up. Whereas Rav Moshe Feinstein says she follows her husband if she's married. So if her husband has not yet davened yet, then she may drink beforehand, and she does not even make Kiddush. If her husband has davened, at that point in time, she now falls into the category of making Kiddush as well. Just some interesting, very fascinating halachas that apply in these cases. Is there any other requirement of this morning Kiddush? The answer is yes, it needs to be Kiddush b'makom suda. That means that one needs to eat for right after this Kiddush to qualify it as a Kiddush introducing a Su'udah at the same time and same place that the Kiddush is being made. How do we know this? So the Kitzur quotes the pasuk of Karas al Shabbos Oneg, you'll call Shabbos enjoyment, and he quotes the Josh of Chazal, b'makom she'ata koreh leShabbos, where you call Shabbos, that's Kiddush. Klama kriya de Kiddush, sham yehei oneg. The oneg and the kriya needs the calling out of Kiddush need to be in the same place. What creates Kiddush b'makom suda? So it needs to be eating a meal right after. And in the same location, one would need to eat a meal. Doesn't need to be bread, so it can and usually, if let's say one's doing Kiddush before the Su'udah Shnia, the second meal on Shabbos in the morning, that would be optimal. But even if let's say one's having a Kiddush and one makes Kiddush and then eats mazonos, that is sufficient. It needs obviously to be a kazayas to constitute a Kiddush b'makom suda. What happens if I don't have mazonos or bread? So let's say I just see a Kiddush and then I take a little bit of fruit. In that case, that's a problem because you've not been Yotzei Kiddush then, because Kiddush only works if it's Kiddush b'makom suda. And if you haven't had a Su'udah at that point in time and you didn't eat mazonos, you weren't Yotzei Kiddush, which means you're eating before Kiddush because that really wasn't Kiddush. That's a very complicated thing that most people are not aware of. So what about a mohel who's, let's say, making a bris on a Shabbos morning and he hasn't had Kiddush yet? How can he drink the wine? He's not going to eat right afterwards. So in that case, one opinion says that you can fulfill Kiddush b'makom suda by drinking a little bit of wine and then drinking a revius, let's say 86 milliliters more of that grape juice or wine right afterwards, and that wine itself, the extra wine, would count as the makom suda, and that would be sufficient. Can I have a Kiddush before Musaf? The answer is yes, but one should not eat more than a kibetza. That's a double olive amount of bread. One can certainly eat fruit and more fruit as well is fine, but it needs to be b'makom suda. So one is able to have a Kiddush before the Musaf, but it should not be an excessive Kiddush because it's going to ruin one's appetite or distract ones from davening later on as well. We move to our next concept, and that is the meals of Shabbos. So with the background to this is that there's a halacha that a man or a woman, everybody is obligated to eat 3 meals on Shabbos, once at night and 2 in the day. What's called Suda Shnia, the second meal, and Suda Shlishis, the third meal. So what must be eaten at the meals? There needs to be bread at the meals. Does there need to be bread at Suda Shlishis? Yes. What if I'm really full at Suda Shlishis? So says the Kitzur, that's very easy to arrange. Just don't eat quite as much in the day. What if so let's say a person comes to Suda Shlishis and they really are full. They just got they got a slow metabolism. It takes time, and even though they ate prudently at the sort of shnia, they still feel just a little overwhelmed. So let's say they cannot eat bread. So the next best is to eat mazonos at sort of shishis. If that's not possible, the next best is meat or fish. If that's not possible, then the next best is cooked fruit. Although the Kitzur does not mention it, there is a practice of the Arizal that learning Torah at the time of sort of shishis counts as this. Many authorities point out that that's very much a b'di'eva. That should not be the lechatchila way one goes about having Suda Shlishis. When is the time for Suda Shlishis? So it's from mincha time, which is 6.5 relative hours into the day. What bread needs to be eaten at the meals? So it needs to really be a lechem mishnah, double loaves of bread for each of the 3 meals, and it needs to be that these breads are full and not broken, not cut. What is this business with the knife? So you notice that sometimes people will take the knife and score aloud on the challah. Generally speaking, that's more of a practice during the week, where one wants to, let's say in the days where bread was much harder, it was baked in ovens, it was homemade, it was much harder, you'd start the cutting to make it faster to be able to cut during right after the brachos. There would be less of an interruption. On Shabbos, one's not really supposed to do that because one doesn't want to make a cut, an incision, which if one lifts up half the loaf, the other half will fall off because then it's no longer shalem, it's no longer complete. But one does it as an indication, like a very small scratch on the surface. And that's sufficient. And obviously, if one cannot find that scratch and one spends time looking for it, then that's obviously defeating the purpose of putting it there in the first place. So it should not delay a person before making the cut. What about a Kiddush? So the Kitzur says it is best to even have 2 mazonos, which are shlemos, which means, let's say a person goes down to the shul Kiddush and makes Kiddush for themselves and their family. They should try to find, let's say, 2 pastries which are full and say mazonos on them and have at least 1 full one, like one would have with bread. Some people are not makpid on this, but the idea of shlemos even applies to a Kiddush as well, argues the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. What happens if there's only 1 mishnah lechem at the table? So let's say there's only 2 loaves of bread. So what about everybody else? So one person should say the hamotzim for everybody else. He should say birshus with permission before he says hamotzim, and then he should give a piece of the lechem mishnah to everybody else. And that seems to be the standard practice at a regular Shabbos table. We're going to look at the last concept for today, and that is the concept of Oneg Shabbos. The Pasuk in Yeshayahu tells us that Shabbos Oneg, you'll call the Shabbos Oneg, enjoyable. Shabbos has to be an enjoyable time. So how is this done? It is done through good foods and good spices. This is meant to say that the physical experience that a person goes through is reflecting the spiritual underpinnings of the day itself. So what is if Ma'ash fast on Shabbos? So let's say a person, for whatever reason, wants to, as part of their tefillah regimen or concern they have, are they allowed to fast? The answer is no. A person may not, because otherwise Shabbos would be unenjoyable. What if I don't intend to fast? I just end up eating late. Is that a problem? So it is a problem if one has not eaten anything by chatzos, which is halachic midday. One has to be careful about this and make sure that one has eaten. It's interesting to see the emphasis that is placed on the physical enjoyment on Shabbos as well, which is a part of Oneg Shabbos. What if there's something that's bothering me? Am I allowed to express distress on Shabbos? So the halacha is one should not allow oneself to wallow in pain on Shabbos. One may daven for rachamim, one may pray for mercy from Hashem. The Ramah even adds that one can cry if it eases the pain, but one should not be focusing and spending time on distressing ideas as well. And this is also important in a day where news is so easily available today, and people ask or try to find out from other people who have access. It's not always good to find out news. No news is good news, and that's really what sells. It's sensational, terrible news. It's a better thing just being detached and not being infected by this. What should one's attitude be to sleep on Shabbos? So sleep is an enjoyment. So a person should take a rest on Shabbos. But it should be done for enjoying Shabbos, not because one has a busy Motzei Shabbos calendar and one wants to prepare for it. That would be inappropriate. What is the place of learning on Shabbos? Says the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the Shabbos and Yom Tov especially is given to Israel to spend time learning Torah. So many people are so busy during the week. They've got so many demands, so many responsibilities. Shabbos should be a time where people spend time learning Torah, fixing up a chavrusa, going to a shir on a Shabbos afternoon, ensuring that their Shabbos is not just a physical experience, but is a spiritual re-evaluating of what they are supposed to be doing at this time. In fact, so much so that the Kitzur points out that Shnai Mikra, reading the parasha twice over with a targum or explanation, should be done before Shabbos. But if one did not do it before Shabbos, it should be done before the day meal, as long as it doesn't push it past midday. In the worst case, the person has until Tuesday to finish as well. Shabbos is meant to be oneg. We're supposed to experience it physically. At the same time, we're also meant to have spiritual experience as well. With this, we close. Have a wonderful and